Hi everyone, I'm Kiara Israni and I look after the marketing for Sophos for the emerging EMEA region. And today I have with me Mayuresh Kothari. Mayuresh, can you please introduce yourself?
Sure, thanks, Kiara. Good day, everyone. My name is Mayuresh Kothari. I'm the technical director for Sophos here in Middle East, looking after the enterprise region.
Great, thanks Mayuresh. Okay, so let's start. Mayuresh, I would first like you to begin with the recent cyber attack in the UAE health sector and what can you tell us about that?
Sure. So, based on the publicly available information that we have, primarily on X, formerly known as Twitter, and some of the threat groups posting on forums, we know that this is a type of threat activity called double extortion. What this means is that the threat actor was first able to establish presence in the organization in question, get access to some sensitive data, exfiltrate that out, and lastly encrypt it. Now, since the threat actor claims that they have stolen millions of records of PII, PCI, etc., the implication of this exposure is serious, and therefore the ransom demand for both decryption of that encrypted data and the threat of exposure is what makes it double extortion.
Okay, thanks Mayuresh. Would you be able to shed some light on the threat group itself, please?
Yes, so the threat group have announced themselves as Gunra, and they have been active since the early part of this year. However, we have clear indicators that this group has evolved from the remains of what was known as the Conti ransomware group, and this was taken down by law enforcement recently in Europe, Germany to be precise. We at Sophos classify this threat actor as Gold Ulrich, and their memo has always been using Windows administrative tools to hide their malicious activity and then run the extortion schemes.
Okay, that's really interesting. So, in light of these attacks, how should impacted organizations act if they are under attack like this one?
So this is not a very simple answer to give because organizations, first of all, that have been impacted, they should immediately involve professional IR teams who are experienced in all aspects of incident response. I mean, things like not just the technical evaluation of the threat activity and then trying to exfiltrate the threat actor or kick the actor out of the network itself, but also things like communications and disclosure to regulators and government entities, communicating to the customers or the end users themselves, and so on. Not just that, the incident response also includes planning for the future to ensure that something like this doesn't happen again and sort of inoculate the organization from something like this happening again.
Okay. So, is this the only way, or is there anything else that organizations can do today as a way of preventive controls and proactively combat against such threats?
So excellent point that you've raised here. So first of all, cybersecurity is a multifaceted exercise that most organizations need to deploy, specifically in the form of a program which can be reviewed, continuously improved, and made repeatable. Now, there are lots of frameworks that can be used to measure the effectiveness of such programs. And in a sense, it makes cybersecurity a team sport. And due to this, it cannot be done in isolation. So always any organization has to look for effective and reliable partners that can allow them to enforce their preventative and policy-based controls, but also do detection and response for them. Take, for example, Sophos, right? We've got endpoint protection and firewall solutions that have been in the market for close to 40 years. We have what we call synchronized security that allows us to synchronize the security between endpoint and network so that if something is happening on the network, endpoint can take care of it and vice versa. But employing preventative controls only is not going to close these gaps. We also need to plan for the worst so that we can hope for the best. And this is where detection-based mechanisms come into picture. Things like, vulnerability management, endpoint detection and response, and then managed detection and response. This again is also not the end of it. Remember, we talked about a program, right? So there has to be things like proactive IR services, create incident response plans, test them against the security capabilities of the team, and so on. And then finally ensure that this is something that can be reviewed very often and then corrected if gaps being identified.
Okay. So, what would you mean by proactive IR? Isn't IR usually reactive?
True. So incident response should not be in this conversation should not only be considered as responding to a threat that is happening actively or live in the environment. It also involves preparing for it, testing for it, identifying the first few activities that need to be mapped out, that need to be done immediately in order to ensure that we minimize the damage of the attack itself. Take real world example, for example, in this case. We've got folks, especially when we used to go to offices, we used to have folks who would have high visibility jackets, helmets sitting on their desk, showing that these are the first responders who've been trained, who know exactly what steps need to be taken in case there is a fire or if there's an accident. They know how to operate the fire extinguisher and channel the people to the right exits when it comes to evacuation. Incident response in the cyber world is aligned into similar mechanisms or similar paths. It needs identified people who are responsible to take the first response actions, to be ready when professional IR teams come into the picture and have the baseline set up for them. To test against the security controls. So this is normally called red team, blue team, to check whether the blue team can respond to threats actively. Training aside, we also need to look at having paper incident response plans, which are aligned to the industry vertical, have playbooks that are specific to what could be the most common threats that attack the organization in question. So this is what makes IR both reactive and proactive.
Okay, so that was very well explained. Thank you so much, Mayuresh. So, I have one final question for you. What do you think makes Sophos different from all the other vendors out there?
At Sophos, we are in a unique position to provide end-to-end solutions with tried and tested capabilities across endpoint, network, cloud, and services. Our secure by design and practice approach has not yet failed us, and we continue to support the region with investments. The latest in this is the upcoming Sophos Central region for UAE, which will allow us to comply to the data residency requirements while continuing to provide world-class security solutions to the region.
Okay, amazing. Thank you so much, Mayuresh. This has been super, super insightful, and let's hope we can have more conversations like this one.
Pleasure talking to you, Kiara, as always.
Thank you.